Okay, I know I said the next video is going to be about Harry Potter and the Prison of Azkaban, but I was rewatching Once Upon a Time for an upcoming video, and I just had to talk about this pilot because it shocked me. I mean, I'm a huge fan of this show. I watched it multiple times, some seasons more than others, but still, I fell in love with the entire idea of the show. I fell in love with the characters, and that carried me through the never ending, utter madness that the plot becomes. But I guess once you watch a show all the way to the end, it becomes easy to forget the magic that got you hooked in the first place. Things become crazy and convoluted, and I mean, some in a good way, some in a not so good way, but I'll be the first to admit that I sort of started believing that Once Upon a Time wasn't actually that good of a show. I kind of forgot about it, and when I did think about it, I only really talked about Regina. I mean, one of my all-time favorite characters, like ever. So, when I decided to rewatch it for this channel, it was more with the intention of pointing out how absolutely off the rails this show was. I was really only watching season 1 to get to the other crazier seasons that I really wanted to talk about, just to get it out of the way. So to say that the pilot threw me off is an understatement. I actually found myself falling in love with the show all over again. Suddenly, I remembered it as more than just over the top plot lines and bad CGI. And by the end of it, I was forced to admit that it may actually be the best pilot I have ever watched. Dun 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 dun. Dun 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 dun. Okay, so let's say you have no idea what Once Upon a Time even is. Let me fill you in. Basically, all the fairy tale characters that we grew up reading about and watching, the Disney princesses and Hansel and Gretel, Little Red Riding Hood, so on and so forth, all these characters get cursed and brought into the real world, our world. So season 1 follows 2 timelines. One in the fairy tale world, where we learn about who these characters are and their lives before the curse, and one in the real world, where Emma, our savior, has to break the curse, which at this point she doesn't even believe in. The first thing I want to talk about is character introductions. The first 10 minutes of the show play out as follows. Charming wakes Snow up from a sleeping curse, and then the evil queen barges into their wedding and makes the boldest threat ever, which she actually pulls off, making her one of the greatest villains ever. But we'll get into that in my season 1 review. Then we have Henry, but we don't know what he's up to or who he is yet. And then Emma, who is a Bales Bonds person, catches the guy she's after, goes home, makes a wish because it's her birthday, and Henry shows up. In exactly 10 minutes, we've been introduced to every member of our core cast, which I think is a smart move. The show slows down significantly as the season progresses, since there are 22 episodes to explore the universe they've created. But this pilot is packed with information. Everything we need to know about this show is given to us in the first episode, to be explored and expounded on throughout the series. In my opinion, that's what a good pilot is. I think the show starting off with Snow White, Charming, and the Evil Queen says a lot about the story and what it's really about. Emma is our hero, but is she our main protagonist? That's debatable. I would argue that it's Regina, given how the show ends, but let's not go that far. For now, what the pilot tells us is that this story, this Once Upon a Time story, is going to be a struggle between the Evil Queen and Snow White. It's always going to come back to them, somehow, some way. They are the center of this story. Their conflict is the primary driving force of this story. And I think that holds up from season to season. Though the show definitely loses focus many, many, many times with the billions of characters that get introduced. In any case, it is absolutely the primary conflict of season 1. Snow White and Prince Charming's introduction set them up as, one, an endgame couple. Snow's first words are, "You found me." And Charming replies, "Did you ever doubt I would?" We know from just that they are a cemented couple in this show. They'll go through whatever they go through, but they are endgame. It's the first thing we see, literally, in this show, and it's basically the foundation of the entire show. True love, the pursuit of it, the power it holds. Is it overdone? Abso-freaking-lutely. Let me tell you that 6 seasons of hearing, "I will find you, I will always find you," gets old really fast. But this is just the pilot, so at this point, it's just sweet. The second thing that the scene tells us is that they know each other. They aren't strangers or people who've kind of sort of met one time. The familiarity with which Snow says, "You," when she first opens her eyes, is enough for us to know that the two have history. The "Did you ever doubt I would?" implies some sort of expectation that he would find her. It wasn't happenstance. He was actively looking for her. And she's a little surprised to see him, but more relieved. Like, "Thank goodness you're here," as opposed to, "Thank you, kind prince." So, in the back of our minds, we start to wonder, what's their story? We know the story of Snow White, but this seems different. They sow the seeds of curiosity so that we're subconsciously waiting to find out more about them, keeping us engaged past the pilot. The Evil Queen's introduction is brilliant. Upon her entrance, Snow and Charming's sweet, slow, melodic theme is abruptly cut off, replaced by hers, which is faster, much lower, louder. In comparison, it's jarring, harsh against Snow and Charming's soft. It's commanding. If you weren't paying attention, if you were looking at your phone, maybe about to walk out of the room, the music would get you to stop and pay attention. It says, something is happening on screen. And for the rest of the show, that sticks with us. That first impression sticks with us. From that point on, whenever the Evil Queen is on screen, we're waiting for something to happen. And you can be sure it does. She displays a little bit of her power, but even the way she looks at Snow and Charming, like, she doesn't consider them a threat at all. Like, Snow's attempted intimidation with the sword is almost amusing to her. The way she walks around the room, not scared of an attack, not worried that what she's saying will anger them, not looking like she even cares at all, that's what makes the Evil Queen powerful. I haven't talked about any other actors, but I will now. I love Lana Parrilla. Frankly, she was the best casting choice. Maybe only in competition with Robert Carlyle, who plays Rumpelstiltskin. She is one of my favorite human beings, and she brought the Evil Queen to life magnificently. I don't think you'll hear me say one negative thing about her acting, so if you disagree, you can fight with the wall. We don't get much in Henry's first introduction, but I thought about it, and actually, I'd say it's pretty much a great summary of his role this season. He carries around the book, trying to convince everyone that it's more than just a book, and that, along with telling Emma she's the savior, is basically all he does. He's pretty self-reliant through the episode, in the sense that he's not a helpless kid. He drives the plots by making his own decisions, doing what he thinks is right, even though he's only 10. Then we have Emma, who has a great introduction as well. Much like the Evil Queen, her first impression is a great one. And thank heavens, because boy does she need the help in later seasons. First, she just outright tells us who she is. She's a loner, an orphan with no family. This is important because she struggles with what these things have done to her for several seasons. She struggles to trust people. She struggles to let herself fall in love or to get too comfortable. This information gives us insight into her actions and motivations, like, for example, staying in Storybrooke for Henry. Then there's the stuff the scene tells us that isn't said out loud. She's intelligent, calculating, confident, and just a badass, if you ask me. There is nothing more badass than chasing after someone who is running and you walk in heels. It says she's in complete control. Like the evil queen not caring that she's literally surrounded by her enemies or that a sword was thrown at her, the way Emma handles the situation tells us that she's, well, I don't know about dangerous, but I say again, a badass. She doesn't even flinch when a car almost hits her. I mean, I'm going to tell you guys now, this version of Emma will sorely be missed. So let's enjoy her while we can. Now, this introduction sets up an interesting conflict between Regina and Emma. Note, I said Regina, not the evil queen. Because the evil queen and Regina are different. The evil queen had power. She had magic. She was stronger than everyone around her, so she really didn't have to do much work to get them to fear her. Regina, on the other hand, doesn't have her magic. She's Maya, but has to actually keep up appearances. She has to pretend to follow the law. She has to be smart, calculating, which against anyone else would be easy. But Regina and Emma are very similar. So watching them butt heads is amazing. It's really no wonder people ship them, honestly. There's also something to be said about the acting of both women. I mean, honestly, they have more chemistry than just about all the romantic couples in this show. And I think that Lana Parrilla brings the best acting out of Jennifer Morrison, the actress who plays Emma. I love Emma and Henry's interactions. Henry's just so darn cute and tiny, and that helps him sell most of his scenes. And in his second introduction, now that we know who he is, Emma's son, we learn more about his character. He's confident, intelligent, and resourceful, like we just saw from Emma, which is why I think they get along so great. I think it's also why Emma caves and doesn't call the cops. She's intrigued by him. She wants to find out what more they could have in common. She also doesn't treat him like a kid. She talks to him like they're friends or like they're the same age, which allows for more banter and comfort in their interactions, which I like. It makes you root for them when you see how differently Regina is with Henry. I mean, of course, Regina has to be different with him because she's his mom, but it's just another layer of conflict between Regina and Emma, another parallel, another thing that invests us in the story. Okay, so the first 10 minutes of the episode were peak writing. How about the other 30? Well, first, they lied to us. Snow says,
"She poisoned an apple because she thought I was prettier than her."
Which we later find out is a big lie. They even show us the scene where Snow bites the apple later on in the series, and when she does, she knows good and well why the evil queen is doing it. Let's say this is the reason I don't like Snow. It's not, but let's say so. Snow convinces Charming to go see him, and he finally agrees, saying, "For our child." And then what do? Cut to Emma. Please. Why is this show so good? The storytelling is so intentional in these earlier episodes. I mean, I'm not even sure I can say it remains this way for the whole season. But in the first few episodes, my goodness. You can tell the thought that was put into camera work, into directing, script, editing, even acting choices. They give us the clues to this mystery so subtly that on the first watch, you will never notice them. But if you rewatch it, you get to point at the screen like, aha, I see what you did there. It's intelligent mystery, and frankly, those are the only ones worth watching. Emma tells Henry,
"Just because you believe something doesn't make it true."
That's exactly what makes it true.
And again, this is a theme throughout the show. Characters are consistently being told to believe in themselves, in their magic, in their love, in the truth, in right and wrong, in each other. It literally persists all the way to the last season. Didn't I tell you everything that we needed to know in this show is in the pilot? Crazy. Anyway, after that, we get another fantastic character introduction. Rumpelstiltskin. I've already mentioned that Robert Carlyle was a great casting choice. He acts his pants off in this show. Honestly, he has no business acting so well in an ABC production fantasy TV show with abysmal CGI. But he goes for it like he was hoping for an Oscar. Hats off, for real. So Rumpelstiltskin is presented to us as mad. But an intentional kind of mad. Not like he's genuinely crazy, but like everything is a game to him. Like he's toying with everyone, which, of course, we come to learn he almost always is. He's always manipulating everyone to the point where it's impossible to know if what they're doing is what he always intended for them to do or not. When he tells Snow and Charming the Evil Queen's plan, he's so unbothered. He's not afraid at all. Actually, he seems excited. But he does become a bit more serious. His tone changes. It's mocking but not playful. It's deep, almost grave, so we know he's not toying with them anymore. And then when he starts talking about the baby, he gets completely serious. That's the part that's important to him. He tells them to get the child to safety twice.
Get the child to safety. Get the child to safety.
Trying to get closer to Snow, almost like he's pleading. Then we get the name drop.
Her name is Emma.
Emma.
And finally, the fantasy world and real world are connected. 15 minutes in, we get an answer of who Emma is, and we can start forming ideas of where the story is going. It's exciting because we realize she's about to meet all the storybook characters, and the story is really about to begin. From here, we have the fairy tale part serving as more of an answer to what's going on in the real world. As Emma meets new people and spends more time in Storybook, we get more answers, more information on those characters and who they really are. It's a much better way to explain the story than, say, spending half the episode in Storybook world and half in the real world. Or worse, a full episode in the Storybook world and the next in the real world. I want to give an honorable mention to the first interaction between Regina and Emma. "You're Henry's birth mother?" And Emma replies with the cutest little hi. I mean, seriously, Regina made her own enemy in Emma. This was the energy Emma was bringing. This cute little bean, cutie patootie lady. And then Regina is just hostile. And that puts Emma on the defensive. And that's what makes her stay. Aside from the character moments, the actual progression of the plot is well-paced and engaging. Like I say, they don't spend a lot of time introducing the characters, so we get caught up pretty quickly. From there, the story unfolds steadily. On the fairy tale side, we have the story of how the characters got cursed in the first place and how Emma got out. In the real world, we have Emma's journey to making that first crucial decision to stay. Henry runs away again, which gets Emma out of jail and forces her to meet Mary Margaret. Note, this is crucial, because seeing how Regina treats Mary Margaret, who from Emma's perspective is a perfectly nice lady, sends off warning bells for her. It shows her that Regina is a bully. She's not just a hard-working, strict mother as she believed last night. And if she can behave like this to someone as meek and harmless as Mary Margaret, then Emma's not sure what, but seeds of doubt are planted. Then, of course, there's the conversation she has with Mary Margaret about how Henry, like all adopted children, grapple with the question of why someone would give them away. The scene is just so clever. Emma is an orphan who grapples with this same exact question, and her mother is the one throwing it back at her. The nuances aside though, realizing that Henry is going through what she went through her whole life is another very big part of why she stays. No one was there for her as a kid, and she knows what that did to her. She has no friends like Henry. She's lonely like Henry. She doesn't have anyone that loves her like Henry feels right now. There's no way she can just leave him to grow up like she did. And all of this is portrayed without exposition. Emma doesn't tell Mary Margaret any of this. She doesn't say it out loud. But from the information we know about her and Jennifer Morrison's acting, it's pretty easy to put two and two together. Did I mention this plot has intelligent writing? I've said this already, but I'm going to say it again. Henry is super cute. I'm going to give his actor an honorable mention, Jared S. Gilmore. He was only 11 when this pilot aired, and he's doing a really good job. When he begs Emma to stay with him, ooh, I feel it in my feels. And this interaction where Emma starts crying as well and tells him the truth about how her life has sucked, it's the kind of thing I was talking about, with her not treating him like a child. It allows them to form a very different relationship than the typical mother-son. They both need each other. But while Henry knows and accepts this, Emma is fighting it. Like I said, Regina seals her fate by going on this rant with Emma. Of course, I understand her anger. I've been rewatching The Fosters, and they have the same frustration with birth parents interfering with their kids. They feel threatened, and so does Regina. In this moment, she's behaving more like a mother than we see for the rest of the season. After she realizes that Emma has decided to stay, she changes tactics. She starts scheming and plotting and being manipulative. And that's the evil queen. But in this moment, she's just Henry's mother. They shoot this scene when she says, "Of course I love him," as if she's lying. We're supposed to believe that Emma's superpower tells her that Regina is lying, but she's not. I'm not sure why they do that. Maybe they hadn't yet decided on Regina's redemption into sympathetic villain. But in any case, it's another display of the great writing. Again, no one had to say out loud that Emma's superpower was tingling. No one had to ask her, "Do you think she's lying?" for us to get what was happening. They've laid the foundation of the characters so well in such a short time that we just get it. Towards the end of the episode, they show us Charming and Rumpelstiltskin in the real world briefly. So that's all our fairy tale characters so far. Now we know who they all are in the real world, and then it ends with the clock moving, leaving us with this huge sense of anticipation. There's no way you can watch this and not want to watch the next one. We have to see what Regina is going to do once she realizes Emma is still around. We want to see what other characters will be introduced. I mean, we've met Archie, and we know that Henry thinks he's Jiminy Cricket. But who else is there? Who are the old lady and her granddaughter who own the inn? Who's the sheriff? And of course, we're waiting to see how Emma is going to break the curse. It's a brilliant pilot. One that shows that the writers were actually excited about this show as well. I mean, why wouldn't they be? It's a fantastic basis for a series with endless fairy tale characters. I can just imagine how fun it was to come up with stories for all of them. And this pilot does a phenomenal job of laying out the basic plot while also endearing us to the characters, while also leaving enough open for us to wonder where it could go. 10 out of 10 pilot.